Michael was always last. Not just sometimes, but always. On the track team, that was a special kind of torture. It wasn't just the sting of defeat, the burning lungs, or the aching muscles. It was the laughter. The snickers. The not-so-subtle jabs from his teammates. "Hey, Michael," Jake would call out, "did you see the finish line? It was way back there." The others would erupt in laughter, and Michael would just grit his teeth and try to ignore them. He knew he wasn't fast. He knew he wasn't built like the other runners, all lean muscle and boundless energy. He was different. He was smaller, slower, and, according to his teammates, a waste of space on the team. Coach Thompson tried to be encouraging, but even his pep talks felt hollow. "Michael, you've got heart," he'd say, "just keep practicing, and you'll improve." But Michael wasn't improving. He was stuck in last place, a permanent fixture at the back of the pack. The worst part was the relay races. Being chosen last was one thing, but when your team depended on you, and you let them down, the shame was unbearable. He remembered one relay race in particular. The team was in second place when he got the baton. He could hear the cheers of the crowd, the shouts of encouragement from his teammates. He ran as hard as he could, but the other runner quickly overtook him. By the time he crossed the finish line, they were in fourth place. The disappointment on his teammates' faces was like a punch to the gut. Jake didn't even try to hide his frustration. "Great job, Michael," he said sarcastically, "you really pulled through for us." Michael wanted to disappear. He wanted to quit the team, to run away and never look back. But something held him back. A tiny spark of defiance, a refusal to let the laughter define him. He hated being last. He hated the mocking. But most of all, he hated feeling helpless. He wanted to prove them wrong. He wanted to prove himself wrong. He wanted to be more than just the kid who always came last. He didn't know how, but he knew he had to change. He needed something to change. And the summer was coming. The summer would be his chance. He just needed a plan. The final straw came at the regional qualifiers. It wasn't just that he came in last, it was how far behind he was. The other runners were already cooling down, chatting with their coaches, when Michael finally stumbled across the finish line, gasping for air. He could feel the eyes of the crowd on him, a mixture of pity and amusement. Even Coach Thompson looked defeated. But it was Jake's comment that finally broke him. "Maybe track just isn't your thing, Michael," Jake said, his voice dripping with false sympathy. "There's always chess club." The laughter that followed was louder, crueler than ever before. Michael's face burned with shame and anger. He wanted to lash out, to punch Jake in the face, to scream at everyone to leave him alone. But he didn't. He just turned and walked away, his head down, his heart aching. He walked all the way home, ignoring the stares and whispers of the people he passed. When he got to his room, he slammed the door shut and collapsed on his bed, tears streaming down his face. He felt like a failure, a loser, a joke. He lay there for hours, lost in his despair. But as the sun began to set, a new feeling began to emerge. It wasn't hope, not exactly. It was something stronger, something more primal. It was anger. Pure, unadulterated anger. He was angry at Jake, at his teammates, at Coach Thompson, even at himself. He was angry at the world for being so unfair, for making him feel so small and insignificant. And he was angry at himself for letting them get away with it. He sat up in bed, his eyes blazing with determination. He wouldn't let them define him. He wouldn't let them break him. He would show them. He would show everyone. He would become the best runner they had ever seen. He knew it wouldn't be easy. He knew it would take hard work, dedication, and sacrifice. But he was willing to do whatever it took. He had nothing to lose and everything to gain. He stood up and walked over to his window, staring out at the darkening sky. He took a deep breath and made a promise to himself. This summer would be different. This summer, he would transform himself. This summer, he would become a machine. He would train harder than anyone else, push himself further than he ever thought possible. And when school started again, they wouldn't even recognize him. He would make them eat their words. He would make them regret ever laughing at him. He would be ready. Michael's summer began before dawn. The first rays of sunlight barely peeked over the horizon as he laced up his worn-out sneakers and stepped out into the cool morning air. He started with a slow jog, his muscles stiff and protesting. He ran through the quiet streets of his neighborhood, past sleeping houses and empty parks. He had a plan, a grueling schedule he'd pieced together from online articles and old training manuals. It was ambitious, maybe even crazy, but he was determined to stick to it. He would run every morning, focusing on building his endurance. After his morning run, he'd do strength training in his garage. His dad had an old weight set that he hadn't used in years, covered in dust and cobwebs. Michael cleaned it up and started with the basics, push-ups, sit-ups, squats, and lifting the weights. He struggled at first, his muscles weak and untrained. But he pushed himself, doing one more rep, one more set, each day. In the afternoons, he focused on speed. He went to the local high school track and ran sprints, practicing his form and timing. He used cones to mark distances and timed himself with his phone. He was slow at first, but he gradually started to improve. He also changed his diet. He cut out junk food and sugary drinks, replacing them with fruits, vegetables, and lean protein. He drank gallons of water to stay hydrated. His mom was surprised by his sudden interest in healthy eating, but she supported him, cooking him nutritious meals and encouraging his efforts. The training was brutal. There were days when he felt like giving up, when his body ached and his mind screamed for him to stop. But he kept going, fueled by his anger and his determination. He pictured Jake's face, the laughter of his teammates, and the disappointment in Coach Thompson's eyes. That was all the motivation he needed. He ran in the rain, he lifted weights in the heat, he sprinted until he collapsed in exhaustion. He pushed himself to the limit, day after day, week after week. Slowly but surely, he began to transform. His body became leaner, stronger, more resilient. He started to feel the difference in his running, the increased speed and endurance. He was still far from perfect, but he was improving. And that was all that mattered. He was becoming the machine he had promised himself he would be. The summer was his forge, and he was the metal being shaped and hammered into something new. One sweltering afternoon, about halfway through the summer, Michael was running sprints at the track. The sun beat down mercilessly, turning the asphalt into a shimmering mirage. He had been pushing himself harder than ever, trying to shave off even a fraction of a second from his time. He lined up at the starting line, took a deep breath, and exploded forward. His legs pumped, his arms drove, and he focused on maintaining his form. He crossed the finish line, gasping for air, and checked his watch. He had shaved off half a second. It wasn't much, but it was progress. He allowed himself a small smile. It was the fastest he had ever run. A wave of satisfaction washed over him, quickly followed by a renewed determination to push even harder. Another day, while lifting weights in his garage, he managed to bench press a weight he had previously struggled with. His muscles trembled with the effort, but he completed the rep. He felt a surge of pride. He was getting stronger. His diet was also paying off. He felt more energetic, more focused. He noticed his clothes were fitting differently, looser around the waist, tighter around the shoulders. He looked in the mirror and saw a different person staring back at him. His face was leaner, his eyes were brighter, and his body was more defined. Even his mom noticed the changes. "Michael, you're looking good," she said one evening, as he was helping her with dinner. "All that training is really paying off." He just smiled and shrugged, but inside, he felt a surge of confidence. He wasn't just changing physically, he was changing mentally. He was becoming more disciplined, more resilient, more focused. He was learning to push through pain, to overcome obstacles, to believe in himself. He still had a long way to go, but he was no longer the same kid who had always come last. He was transforming into something better, something stronger, something more. He was starting to see glimpses of the runner he knew he could be. The runner who would surprise everyone. The runner who would leave the laughter behind. The runner who would finally prove them all wrong. The finish line, once a distant dream, was now coming into focus. He could almost taste victory. He just needed to keep pushing. One more run, one more lift, one more sprint. He would get there. He would. The first day of senior year arrived with a mix of excitement and trepidation. Michael stood in front of his mirror, adjusting his new clothes. He had outgrown almost everything he owned over the summer. He barely recognized himself. The skinny, awkward kid he used to be was gone, replaced by a leaner, more muscular version. He walked to school, feeling a strange sense of anonymity. He passed familiar faces, but no one seemed to recognize him. He even walked past Jake, who glanced at him briefly before looking away, seemingly uninterested. When he arrived at the track, the team was already gathered, chatting and stretching. He stood on the edge of the group, feeling awkward and out of place. He saw Coach Thompson, who was talking to Jake and a few other runners. He hesitated for a moment, then took a deep breath and walked towards them. "Coach Thompson," he said, his voice a little shaky. The coach turned around, his eyes widening in surprise. He stared at Michael for a moment, his expression a mixture of confusion and disbelief. "Michael," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "Is that really you?" Michael nodded, a nervous smile on his face. Coach Thompson continued to stare at him, shaking his head in amazement. I don't believe it," he said. You've changed so much." Jake and the other runners turned to look at Michael, their faces a mixture of shock and confusion. They stared at him, whispering to each other. "Who is that?" Jake asked, his voice barely audible. "I think it's Michael," one of the other runners said, his voice filled with disbelief. Jake's eyes widened. He stared at Michael, his mouth agape. He looked him up and down, taking in his new physique, his confident posture, his piercing gaze. He couldn't believe it. The kid he had always mocked, the kid who had always come last, was standing before him, transformed. Michael stood tall, meeting their gazes, a sense of quiet satisfaction washing over him. The summer had changed him, not just physically, but mentally. He was no longer the same kid who had been bullied and ridiculed. He was someone new, someone stronger, someone who was ready to prove them all wrong. He was ready to run. He was ready to win. He was ready for anything. Tryouts were scheduled for the following week. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation. Michael felt a strange mix of excitement and nervousness. He knew he had improved, but he wasn't sure how he would measure up against the other runners. When the day arrived, Michael felt ready. Coach Thompson announced the first event, the 400-meter dash. Michael lined up with the other runners, including Jake, who shot him a skeptical glance. Well, Jake said, a smirk on his face. "Look who decided to show up." "Still planning on bringing up the rear, Michael?" Michael ignored him, focusing on his breathing and visualizing the race. The starting gun fired, and they were off. Michael exploded from the blocks, his legs pumping, his arms driving. He ran with a newfound speed and power, surprising even himself. He crossed the finish line, gasping for air, and glanced at the timer. His eyes widened in disbelief. He had shaved off several seconds from his previous best time. He had even beaten Jake. The other runners stared at him in stunned silence. Coach Thompson looked equally surprised. He walked over to Michael, a look of amazement on his face. "Michael," he said, "that was incredible." I had no idea you had that in you." Jake, however, was not impressed. "Beginner's luck," he muttered, crossing his arms. "He'll never be able to do that again." Coach Thompson ignored Jake and announced the next event, the 800-meter run. Michael felt a surge of confidence. He knew his endurance had improved significantly over the summer. He lined up with the other runners, determined to prove Jake wrong. The starting gun fired, and they were off again. Michael ran with a smooth, steady pace, conserving his energy for the final stretch. As they approached the finish line, Michael unleashed his final burst of speed, surging past the other runners and crossing the finish line in first place. He had beaten Jake again. This time, even Jake looked impressed. But he still refused to admit that Michael had improved. "He's just having a good day," he said, trying to downplay Michael's performance. "He'll be back to his old self soon enough." Despite Jake's skepticism, Michael knew he had proven something. He had shown them that he was no longer the same kid who had always come last. He was a new runner, a better runner, a runner who was ready to compete. But he also knew that this was just the beginning. He still had a long way to go. He needed to keep training, keep pushing himself, keep improving. He needed to show them that this wasn't just a fluke. He needed to earn their respect. And he would. He would earn everyone's respect. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. The team began their regular season, and Michael consistently surprised everyone. In the first meet, he placed second in the 400-meter dash, just a fraction of a second behind the first-place runner from a rival school. Jake came in fourth. After the race, Jake approached Michael, his expression a mixture of grudging respect and resentment. "Okay, fine," he said. "Maybe you're not a complete joke anymore. But one good race doesn't make you a star." Michael just shrugged and walked away, not wanting to get drawn into another argument. He knew he had a lot to prove, and he wasn't going to let Jake's negativity distract him. In the following weeks, Michael continued to improve, consistently placing in the top 3 in every race. He was gaining confidence with each victory, and his teammates were starting to take him seriously. Even Coach Thompson seemed impressed, offering him words of encouragement and advice. However, there were still doubters. Some of the runners whispered behind his back, suggesting that his improvement was due to luck or some other external factor. They couldn't believe that the kid who had always been last could suddenly become a competitive runner. One day, after a particularly grueling practice, Michael overheard a conversation between Jake and another runner. "I still don't get it," Jake said. "How did Michael suddenly get so good? It's like he's a completely different person." "Maybe he's cheating," the other runner suggested. "Maybe he's taking something to enhance his performance." Jake nodded thoughtfully. "That's a possibility," he said. "We need to keep an eye on him." Michael felt a surge of anger. He had worked his tail off to get where he was, and the thought that they would accuse him of cheating was infuriating. He wanted to confront them, to defend himself, but he knew that wouldn't accomplish anything. Instead, he decided to let his running do the talking. He would continue to train hard, to push himself to the limit, to prove them wrong. He would show them that his success was not due to luck or cheating, but to hard work, dedication, and perseverance. He would make them eat their words. He would become the best runner they had ever seen. And he would do it all without compromising his integrity. He would win fair and square. As the season progressed, Michael's performances continued to improve. He started winning smaller races, local meets against other high schools in the area. Each victory fueled his confidence and silenced the doubters, one by one. He began to experiment with different strategies, learning how to pace himself, how to conserve energy, and how to unleash his final burst of speed at the right moment. He studied the techniques of other runners, analyzing their form and their strategies. He became a student of the sport, immersing himself in every aspect of running. Coach Thompson recognized Michael's dedication and potential, and he started to give him more individualized training, focusing on his strengths and weaknesses. He pushed Michael harder than ever before, challenging him to reach new levels of performance. Even Jake started to come around, albeit grudgingly. He still made snide remarks from time to time, but he also started to offer Michael advice and support. He realized that Michael's success was not a threat to him, but an opportunity to improve the team as a whole. The team started to rally around Michael, recognizing him as a leader and an inspiration. They saw his hard work, his dedication, and his unwavering commitment to excellence. They saw how he had transformed himself from the kid who always came last into a competitive runner who was capable of achieving great things. Michael's success also started to attract attention from college scouts. Coaches from smaller colleges began to attend his races, impressed by his speed, his endurance, and his potential. They saw in him the qualities of a successful college athlete: discipline, determination, and a willingness to work hard. Michael's dream of running in college was starting to seem within reach. He knew that he still had a long way to go, but he was more determined than ever to achieve his goals. He would continue to train hard, to push himself to the limit, to prove himself to everyone who had ever doubted him. He would show them that anything is possible with hard work, dedication, and belief in yourself. He was no longer just running for himself, he was running for everyone who had ever been told they weren't good enough. He was running for the underdog. He was running for victory. Michael's success on the track was starting to bleed into other areas of his life. He felt more confident in school, raising his hand in class, participating in discussions. He even started talking to Sarah, a girl he had a crush on for years but had always been too shy to approach. He realized that the same principles that applied to running, hard work, dedication, and belief in yourself, also applied to other aspects of his life. He started to set goals for himself, not just in running, but in school, in his relationships, and in his personal development. He started to believe that he could achieve anything he set his mind to. He no longer saw himself as the kid who always came last. He saw himself as a capable, confident, and determined young man who was capable of achieving great things. This newfound confidence also helped him to deal with the pressure of competition. He learned to embrace the challenge, to see each race as an opportunity to prove himself, to push himself to the limit. He no longer ran with fear or trepidation. He ran with purpose and passion. He also started to mentor younger runners on the team, sharing his knowledge and experience, offering them words of encouragement and support. He wanted to help them achieve their goals, just as Coach Thompson had helped him. He wanted to inspire them to believe in themselves, to work hard, and to never give up on their dreams. He realized that his journey was not just about him. It was about inspiring others, about showing them that anything is possible with hard work, dedication, and belief in yourself. He wanted to be a role model, a leader, someone who could make a positive impact on the world. As the season drew to a close, Michael felt a sense of anticipation and excitement. The state championship was just around the corner, and he knew that this was his chance to prove himself on the biggest stage of all. He was ready. He was confident. He was determined. He was ready to run the race of his life. He was ready to make his dream a reality. He was ready to win. He believed in himself. He knew he could do it. And that was all that mattered. He was ready. The day of the state championship dawned bright and clear. A crisp autumn breeze swept across the stadium, carrying with it the scent of freshly cut grass and nervous anticipation. The stands were packed with spectators, a sea of faces buzzing with excitement. Banners from different schools fluttered in the wind, adding to the vibrant atmosphere. Michael arrived at the stadium with his team, feeling a mix of excitement and nerves. He could feel the weight of expectation on his shoulders, the pressure to perform at his best. He knew that this was the biggest race of his life, and he wanted to make his team, his coach, and his family proud. The atmosphere in the stadium was electric. The air crackled with energy as runners from all over the state warmed up, stretching their muscles and preparing for their races. The sound of the starting gun echoed through the stadium, signaling the start of another event. Michael could see Jake pacing nervously nearby. He walked over to him, offering a word of encouragement. "Just relax and run your race," he said. "You've got this." Jake nodded, taking a deep breath. "Thanks, Michael," he said. "I appreciate it." Michael walked over to Coach Thompson, who was standing near the starting line, watching the other races. The coach gave him a reassuring smile. "Just remember everything we've worked on," he said. "Run your race, and don't let the pressure get to you. I believe in you, Michael." Michael nodded, feeling a surge of gratitude. He was so lucky to have such a supportive coach. He knew that Coach Thompson had always believed in him, even when he didn't believe in himself. As he walked towards the starting line for his race, the 400-meter dash, Michael could feel his heart pounding in his chest. He took a deep breath, trying to calm his nerves. He looked out at the crowd, searching for his family. He spotted his mom and dad in the stands, waving and smiling at him. He smiled back, feeling a wave of love and support wash over him. He lined up at the starting blocks, taking his position. He could feel the eyes of the crowd on him, the weight of their expectations. He closed his eyes, taking another deep breath. He visualized the race, running it perfectly in his mind. He saw himself exploding from the blocks, running with speed and power, crossing the finish line in first place. He opened his eyes, feeling a sense of calm and determination. He was ready. He was ready to run the race of his life. He was ready to make his dream a reality. He was ready to win. The starting gun fired. The gun fired, and Michael exploded from the blocks. He felt a surge of adrenaline as he sprinted forward, his legs pumping, his arms driving. The other runners were fast, incredibly fast. He could see them out of the corner of his eye, their bodies a blur of motion. He focused on his breathing, on maintaining his form, on pushing himself to the limit. He was slightly behind the leaders, running in fourth place. He knew he needed to make a move, but he also knew he couldn't burn out too early. He remembered Coach Thompson's advice: conserve your energy, Michael. Wait for the right moment, and then unleash your final burst of speed. He rounded the first turn, feeling the centrifugal force pulling him outwards. He maintained his pace, staying close to the other runners, but not pushing himself too hard. As they approached the halfway point, Michael started to feel the fatigue setting in. His legs were burning, his lungs were aching, and his vision was starting to blur. He knew he needed to dig deep, to find reserves of strength he didn't know he had. He thought of all the hard work he had put in over the summer, all the sacrifices he had made, all the doubters he had wanted to prove wrong. He thought of his family, his coach, and his teammates, all of whom were counting on him. He thought of Sarah, who was cheering him on from the stands. He drew on that energy, that motivation, and he started to pick up the pace. He slowly began to gain ground on the leaders, inching closer with each stride. He passed one runner, then another. He was now in second place, just a few strides behind the leader, a tall, muscular runner from a rival school. The crowd was roaring, their cheers deafening. Michael could feel their energy, their excitement, their belief in him. He knew that this was his moment. He knew that he had to give it everything he had. He took a deep breath and unleashed his final burst of speed. He surged forward, his legs pumping like pistons, his arms driving him towards the finish line. He was gaining on the leader, closing the gap with each stride. He could see the finish line just ahead, a ribbon of white stretching across the track. He pushed himself harder than ever before, ignoring the pain, ignoring the fatigue, ignoring everything but the finish line. He was almost there. He was almost there. He was almost there. He could feel the lactic acid burning in his muscles, his lungs screaming for air, his vision narrowing. But he refused to give up. He refused to let the pain defeat him. He refused to let his dream slip away. He dug deep, summoning reserves of strength he didn't know he had. He pushed himself harder than ever before, ignoring the agony, focusing on the finish line, on the victory that awaited him. He was neck and neck with the leader, their bodies a blur of motion, their strides perfectly synchronized. The crowd was on its feet, roaring with excitement, their cheers urging him onward. He could hear the pounding of his own heart, the rasping of his own breath, the thundering of his own footsteps. He could feel the heat of the other runner beside him, the intensity of the competition, the weight of the moment. He closed his eyes for a split second, picturing the finish line, picturing himself crossing it in first place. He opened his eyes, his gaze locked on the ribbon of white just ahead. He leaned forward, extending his arms, reaching for the finish line. He crossed the finish line, collapsing onto the track, his body completely spent. He lay there for a moment, gasping for air, his muscles twitching uncontrollably. He didn't know if he had won. He didn't know if he had beaten the state record. He didn't know anything except that he had given it everything he had. He had pushed himself to the limit, and he had left everything on the track. He slowly sat up, looking around, searching for answers. He saw Coach Thompson running towards him, his face beaming with joy. He saw his family in the stands, jumping up and down, cheering and waving. He saw Sarah, her eyes sparkling with pride. He knew then that he had done it. He had achieved his dream. He had won the state championship. He had beaten the state record. He had proven everyone wrong. He had become the best runner he could be. And he had done it all through hard work, dedication, and belief in himself. He had done it. He had finally done it. He felt a surge of pride and gratitude wash over him. He was a champion. He was a winner. He was Michael. And he was proud of who he had become. The stadium erupted in cheers. The announcer's voice boomed over the loudspeaker, announcing Michael as the winner and confirming that he had indeed broken the state record. The crowd went wild, chanting his name, applauding his victory. Michael's teammates rushed onto the track, lifting him onto their shoulders, carrying him around the stadium in celebration. Even Jake joined in, a wide smile on his face. He clapped Michael on the back, offering him words of congratulations. "I can't believe it, Michael," Jake said, his voice filled with admiration. "You actually did it. You beat the state record. You're amazing." Michael smiled, feeling a sense of vindication. He had finally proven himself to everyone, including Jake. He had shown them that he was capable of achieving great things, that he was not just the kid who always came last. He looked over at the stands, searching for his family. He saw his mom and dad, their faces beaming with pride, their eyes filled with tears of joy. He waved to them, feeling a surge of love and gratitude. He saw Sarah, standing near the railing, applauding his victory. He smiled at her, and she smiled back, her eyes sparkling with admiration. He knew that she was proud of him, not just for his athletic achievements, but for the person he had become. He looked around at the stadium, taking in the scene, savoring the moment. He had come a long way from the kid who always came last. He had faced challenges, overcome obstacles, and persevered through adversity. And he had emerged victorious. He noticed the runners he had competed against earlier, the ones who had dismissed him, the ones who had doubted him. Their faces were etched with shock and disbelief. They couldn't believe that he had beaten them, that he had broken the state record. They approached him, offering their congratulations, their voices filled with respect. They had witnessed his transformation, his dedication, his unwavering commitment to excellence. They had seen him rise from the bottom to the top, and they were amazed by his achievement. Michael accepted their congratulations with grace and humility. He knew that he couldn't have done it alone. He had been supported by his family, his coach, his teammates, and his friends. He was grateful for their belief in him, for their encouragement, and for their unwavering support. He had proved them all right. He was a champion. He was a state record holder. He was Michael. And he had finally found his place in the world. As Michael was basking in the glow of his victory, a man in a crisp suit approached him. He introduced himself as Coach Davies from State University, a renowned track and field program. Michael, Coach Davies said, extending his hand. That was an incredible performance. I've been watching you all season, and I've been incredibly impressed with your progress. Your dedication and hard work are truly remarkable. Michael shook his hand, feeling a surge of excitement. He had dreamed of running in college, but he wasn't sure if it was a realistic goal. He had assumed that he would have to settle for a smaller school, or maybe even give up running altogether. I'd like to offer you a full scholarship to State University, Coach Davies continued. We believe that you have the potential to be a star on our team, and we'd be honored to have you join us. Michael's eyes widened in disbelief. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. A full scholarship to State University? It was a dream come true. Are you serious? He asked, his voice barely a whisper. Absolutely, Coach Davies replied, smiling. We've been following your progress closely, and we're convinced that you have what it takes to succeed at the college level. We're prepared to offer you a full ride, covering tuition, room and board, and all other expenses. Michael was speechless. He didn't know what to say. He had worked so hard to achieve his goals, and now, it was all paying off. He had transformed himself from the kid who always came last into a state champion, and now, he was being offered a full scholarship to a prestigious university. He looked over at his family, their faces filled with pride and joy. He knew that they had sacrificed so much to support his dreams, and he was grateful for their unwavering love and encouragement. He took a deep breath and turned back to Coach Davies. I accept, he said, his voice filled with emotion. I would be honored to attend State University and run for your team. Coach Davies smiled, shaking his hand again. Welcome to the family, Michael, he said. I know you're going to do great things. Michael felt a surge of excitement and anticipation. He was ready for the next chapter in his life, the next challenge, the next opportunity to prove himself. He was ready to run at the college level, to compete against the best runners in the country. He was ready to achieve his full potential. He was ready for anything. He had finally made it. He had earned his scholarship. He was going to college. And his life was just beginning. In the weeks that followed, Michael had time to reflect on his journey. He realized that it wasn't just about winning races or breaking records. It was about the person he had become along the way. He had learned the value of hard work, the importance of dedication, and the power of self-belief. He had discovered that anything is possible if you are willing to put in the effort and never give up on your dreams. He had also realized that proving people wrong was less important than proving himself right. He had started out wanting to silence the doubters, to make them regret their mockery. But he had ultimately learned that the greatest reward was not the satisfaction of proving others wrong, but the satisfaction of knowing that he had achieved his full potential. He thought about Jake, his former tormentor, who had become one of his biggest supporters. He realized that Jake's initial negativity had actually motivated him to work harder, to push himself further. He was grateful for Jake's role in his journey, even though it hadn't always been easy. He thought about Coach Thompson, who had always believed in him, even when he didn't believe in himself. He was grateful for Coach Thompson's guidance, his encouragement, and his unwavering support. He thought about his family, who had sacrificed so much to support his dreams. He was grateful for their love, their understanding, and their unwavering belief in him. He thought about Sarah, who had inspired him to be a better person. He was grateful for her friendship, her encouragement, and her unwavering support. He realized that he had been surrounded by people who loved him, who believed in him, and who wanted him to succeed. He was grateful for their presence in his life, and he knew that he wouldn't have been able to achieve his goals without them. He also realized that his journey was not over. It was just beginning. He was excited about the challenges that lay ahead, the opportunities to learn and grow, the chance to make a positive impact on the world. He was ready to embrace the future, to live his life to the fullest, and to inspire others to do the same. He had learned that the greatest victory is not winning a race, but becoming the best version of yourself. And he was determined to continue on that path, to continue to grow, to continue to learn, and to continue to inspire others. He was ready for whatever life had in store for him. He was ready to run. He was ready to win. He was ready to live. He had found himself. Years later, Michael is thriving at State University. He's not just a star athlete, he's also excelling academically, maintaining a high GPA and earning the respect of his professors. He's a valued member of the track and field team, not just for his speed and talent, but for his leadership and his positive attitude. He mentors younger runners, sharing his experiences and inspiring them to reach their full potential. He remembers what it was like to be the underdog, the one who always came last, and he's determined to help others overcome their challenges and achieve their dreams. He still keeps in touch with Coach Thompson, who often comes to watch his races. Coach Thompson is incredibly proud of Michael's accomplishments, not just on the track, but in all areas of his life. He's even remained friends with Jake, who is now attending a nearby college. They often train together during the summer, pushing each other to improve and achieve new goals. Michael's story has become an inspiration to many. He's often invited to speak at schools and community events, sharing his journey and encouraging others to never give up on their dreams. He tells them that anything is possible with hard work, dedication, and belief in yourself. He tells them that it doesn't matter where you start, it's where you finish that counts. He's living proof that even the most unlikely individuals can achieve great things if they are willing to put in the effort and never lose sight of their goals. He's a reminder that hard work pays off, that perseverance is key, and that anything is possible if you believe in yourself. Michael's story is a story of hope, a story of inspiration, a story of redemption. It's a story that reminds us that we all have the potential to achieve great things, to overcome obstacles, and to make a positive impact on the world. It's a story that encourages us to never give up on our dreams, to always believe in ourselves, and to always strive to be the best version of ourselves. It's a story that shows us that even the kid who always comes last can become a champion, a leader, and an inspiration to others. Believe in yourself, and you can achieve anything.